You are listening to Leaders and Legends, a podcast produced by Veteran Strategies and featuring conversations with fascinating and impactful men and women who have shaped our world, our communities, and our history. My name is Robert Vane, Principal of Veteran Strategies, and your host for our discussion. You are listening to Leaders and Legends, a podcast presented by Veteran Strategies, an Indiana-based public relations enterprise, and sponsored by Girl Scouts of Central Indiana, Garmong Construction, Leaders and Legends LLC, the Grand Hall and Conference Center at Historic Union Station, the McGinley's Golden Ace Inn, and NFP, a national insurance broker with strong local content. Our podcast is featured on the All Indiana Podcast Network in partnership with Wish TV. You may find Leaders and Legends at allindianapodcastnetwork.com. Thinking of starting a podcast or need to host a public meeting? Let Leaders and Legends LLC be your partner as you look for new ways to communicate your message. Please contact Chris Spangle or me at leadersandlegends.net. And as always, all our podcast interviews are dedicated to the legacy and generosity of P.E. McAllister. Thank you for joining us on the Leaders and Legends podcast. Our guests today are Diane Masariu and Lesa Dietrick, longtime friends and movers and shakers, leaders and legends here in the city of Indianapolis. That's for sure. And speaking of the latest, it's the Hall of Famer, Jim Shella.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for joining us. You're always such a welcome guest on these quote-unquote political podcasts, and so they make them, they're so much better with you here, and congratulations.
Thank you.
How long have you known these young ladies?
Oh, my goodness. I'm pretty sure I met Diane in 1983, I would guess, when I first covered the General Assembly, and Lesa probably just about the same time.
Yeah, only I would have been with the Hudnut campaign.
Right.
So that's
right.
But then I moved over to the Statehouse in '88. So
Diane was a
I
member.
walked in the doors at the Statehouse in 1975.
Yeah.
Diane was a member of the Statehouse staff for 31 years. She's been recognized for her considerable knowledge and insight into the legislative process through a variety of roles in the Indiana House of Representatives. She was principal clerk during 2003 and 2004. She also served as policy director for the Democratic Caucus and administrative assistant for two speakers, one House minority leader, and a Democratic leader. Lesa, prior to joining Ice Miller, was a lobbyist with the Indianapolis firm of Ed, Sweetheart, Tracy, and Associates. Ed's going to love listening to this podcast. He is going to love this one.
I love it, Tracy.
Everybody loves it, Tracy.
She was also campaign manager for then Indianapolis Mayor Bill Hudnut in 83 and 87. Mm-hmm. And there's all kinds of connections because Ed Tracy's come on the podcast. People you've worked for, John Gregg, come on the podcast. Hudnut's campaign manager in 79 came on the podcast. Mark Miles, that's right. During 1984, Lesa was the executive director of the Indiana Reagan-Bush re-election campaign. We need to talk about that as it relates to the Orr race in 84. Lesa joined Ice Miller in 1993. They're both delightfully lovely, wonderfully foul-mouthed, incredibly respected. Jim, it's all on you.
Well, what you both are at the moment is you're lobbyists.
We are.
Correct.
And we're younger than you, but not.
Well, and that means we won't talk about age.
I'm at Fragrant Drinker.
You're
Used to be Baker and Daniels. We're Fragrant Drinker.
I thought she called you a heavy drinker.
I did too. It's the law firm formerly known as Baker and Daniels. But don't they have? They're still Fragrant Drinker. They're getting another name, aren't they?
No, we're not.
No,
not that I'm aware of. At least now.
They're passing them around.
How are you?
And Lisa's at Ice Miller.
I am, yes.
Okay, so by definition, if you're a lobbyist, you spend a lot of time in the hallway at the State House, and those are marble floors. So my first question is, what are your shoe recommendations?
Well, I have to admit that walking into the office today, I had on soft-soled shoes, and just for you all, I changed them to something a little bit more appropriate. But all those many years, and Di'll probably agree, of being in heels has not helped my feet. And I remember...
Or my back.
Or your back. I remember at one point, the famous and infamous Bill Colbert had said, well, maybe what we need here are some rugs outside the hall in front of each chamber. And I was like, I'm sure we'll get them and you'll find a way to make all of us pay for them and you'll take the credit.
And lo and behold.
And
And we got benches. We now
too.
have benches.
Yep.
So you don't have to stand the whole time.
No.
Yeah. Any shoe recommendations?
I'm with her. Wear tennis shoes over, put your heels on. We're girls. We have egos.
Yep.
You want to look good.
And actually, I have, because I do that, and I walk in the north door over through the parking lot and sit there and change shoes, I have some great conversations because that's how legislators come in. And I just sit there on the bench and just wait for people while I'm changing shoes. And I'm like, well, this is a fabulous place.
She is our very own Mary Tyler Moore. Seriously, when she walks in.
Okay, one part of your bio that Robert left out, Lesa, is that you grew up in Pennsylvania.
I did.
How'd you get to Purdue and Indiana?
So I grew up in Greencastle, Pennsylvania, for which Greencastle, Indiana is named, by the way. A little tiny speck on the map, right by the Mason-Dixon line, about an hour and a half from the Beltway in D.C. What brought me to Indiana, if my wonderful late father were around, he would say, yep, that's right, is that I applied to 3 schools, because we're all about football in Pennsylvania. I applied to 3 schools with great names in football. And those 3 were Auburn, USC, and Purdue. At the time, Purdue, Bob Greasy, et cetera.
Bob Greasy,
right?
that's right.
And we used to love watching NFL football. And so it was like, okay, I don't want to go in state. I'm going out of state. And I wanted to go to USC. And I got into all 3. And my dad said, well, good for you. I'll pay for Purdue. I was not stupid. Went to Purdue for all 4 years, graduated. And love kept me in Indiana because I met my husband, Andy, there. So that's how I made it to Indiana and stayed. So I am, I try to be a Hoosier, but I'm always a Boiler.
I understand. Hoosier by choice.
Yeah.
Diane, you went to Speedway High School.
I did.
And
we got something going on out there this month of May. I don't know if you've heard about it or not.
I have. And you got to the State House through family connections, correct?
Nope. I actually got there by default. I had, quite frankly, actually, Mom was there working at the time, but I had gotten a scholarship to go to beauty school. And, that old line, beauty school dropout, I had realized I did not want to do that for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. And by then was not able to go to enroll in college. Everybody had started, gone. And it was just like, well, you're not going to sit around and do nothing. So at that time, I brought my shorthand down to the State House. And the rest is history. I got bit by the bug, and I never looked back. Phil Bainbridge was speaker when I got hired at 18.
And your mother was there for a long time.
20 years.
20 years, and she served as house clerk, much as you did.
She served as house clerk in the first 50-50 split, she and Sharon Thuma, in 1988. And we were the first mother-daughter clerks elected in the United States. When I became clerk. She held the Bible. When she became clerk, I held the Bible.
Yeah.
We worked together for 20 years.
How was that?
Awesome. She was my best friend. She was a rock star.
She was just great. She was just great.
Very memorable. She was very memorable. Did we mention her first name, Betty?
Betty.
Yeah.
She had the perfect temperament for working at the State House with legislators and staff and everyone else. Perfect temperament.
Tell me about working with Bill Hudnut, Lesa, because I've known some other folks who have been Hudnut staffers. He was the happy-go-lucky guy in public. He was the leprechaun in the parade. He was the guy in the stocking cap riding the snowplow.
Yep.
Behind the scenes, not so much.
Yeah, he could. I think we all know who, those of us who've worked with and for elected officials, and you know that there's a public persona and there's your private persona. And I think my only knowledge of Bill Hudnut before I really came to work there was what little I saw, because I wasn't from here, right? But I quickly learned, and I managed his '83 campaign, then worked on the Reagan campaign in '84, and then went inside the mayor's office in '85 and '86 as an executive assistant. And typically when Bill did anything political, even in his role as mayor, if he traveled and went to Lincoln Day dinners, for instance, 42 in one year, all of them with green beans, I typically traveled with him because I knew political folks and that sort of thing. So that's typically what I would do after he got off work. But I quickly learned that if you didn't give it back to him as much as he gave it to you, you were toast. So you better stand your ground. And he wanted to hear what lots of elected officials didn't want to hear, and people got whittled out of that inner circle if they were just yes men or yes women. And you just had to say, this is just crap. You can't do this. This is just silly. And even to this day, back before he passed away, he'd call up and say, somebody called me and asked me to write this letter to the editor. And I was thinking, or to take a stand on something. And I was thinking that that would be a good idea. So I wanted to see what you'd say. And I was like, okay, fine. You want to do it, great, but I'm going to write your political obituary. And I started, and I just rattle off. Bill Hudnut did these 5 things, but then he did these 3 really silly ass things. and he's like, okay, I figured you'd say that, but I won't do it. So that's where it went.
Well, if you don't mind, I'll tell a story that a friend of mine told me. He was on Hudnut's staff and got tired of being berated. And so one day he went over to the city market and he bought a sandwich and a beverage. And he went back to his office and he called the mayor and said, I'd like you to come to my office. And he showed the mayor a chair, handed him the sandwich and the beverage, and said, I just want you to listen for a minute. And unloaded on him, just let him have it, figuring he'd be fired. And when he got done, the mayor looked at him and said, welcome to the team.
I mean, perfect example, right? He just he wanted people who pushed back and had his best interests in mind, right? But he wanted people to say, this is why you should or shouldn't do this. And you may have thought all night it was a great idea when you were writing this down, I should do this, but it's not. And here's why. And if you did that and you challenged him and it was well thought out, then you were on the team. And that team there were fewer and fewer of us at the end, right? So.
Right. Diane, you worked with some pretty colorful folks.
Yes.
Who would you categorize as the most colorful?
It's got to be John Gregg, quite frankly. That was probably a given with everybody sitting around this table, quite frankly.
You were his administrative assistant?
I was. Tim Jeffers was chief of staff, and Jerry Williams and John Taylor were there on the inside. John Taylor, we lost. One of the smartest guys, brightest guys I've ever had the good fortune of knowing and working next to. Just was an absolute delight. Jerry Williams, they just don't come any better than Jerry Williams. He was just smart. You could come in. Craig Fry and I were just visiting the other day, and Craig came in and he would say, I need to find a place for this. And Jerry,
the legislator looking for a place for
Jerry always,
language.
Yep,
and
Jerry always knew. Jerry always knew. Yeah. There was Mark Cruzan, was very colorful, and if you could find him, and I always knew where he was. Cruiser always made sure that I knew where he was on the chance that they needed him.
Well, you know that his office was just off the media balcony. And my photographer and I used to use the couch in that office. We called it the Channel 8 Annex because that was where we would go and just listen to the speaker of what. There was a audio speaker in there that you could listen to what was going on the House floor. It was a lot more comfortable place to sit than on the media balcony while you were waiting for something to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And you got to mention Chet Dobas, too. I mean, you talk about somebody else you got to talk about Chet.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. You had a lot of fun.
We had a great time. I mean, it was a lot of fun. But people got along back then.
They did.
That we don't get. It doesn't work so well over there these days. I mean, it's not the way it used to be. I mean, it is just not the way it used to be at all.
Is the disconnect or the discontent as much within the party as it is between parties? In other words, with the Republican supermajority, do they have trouble getting along, or is it just R's and D's fussing?
Personally, I think that the R's and D's have gotten along better this year than they have in the last 10 years. I think that they've got their own Achilles heel within their own caucuses, right, with the supermajorities. Todd Houston is a great guy. He's got a lot of cats to herd. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't have the longevity that Brian Bosma did. And Bosma did a great job. Bosma was a great speaker. Like him or not, you can pick or choose, but Brian did a great job. And there is that disconnect. And in the Senate, with all the stuff that's gone on over there this year, with the change in leadership, and with that many people, and quite frankly, the two chambers don't know each other. I don't ever, if I'm ever out, do I ever assume that a senator knows a representative or vice versa. Sometimes even in the same party. When we've hosted joint House-Senate dinners, mm-hmm. You've got to know that when walking in, the senators don't know the House members and the House members don't know the senators.
I want you to give me some details on an old story from when you were John Gregg's administrative assistant. I've been told that it was a redistricting year. Mike McDaniel was state Republican chairman, and he wanted to have a meeting with then Speaker Gregg to try to work out some details, and wanted it to be in private.
And it was in my van that we drove around the city of Indianapolis.
I love it.
I went over to the hotel and got Johnny on he was living at the time with Bill Cochran, God rest his soul, was just a doll. And Weinzabel, Jonathan had come to the legislature, and I said, you need to let him live with you. And so those three boys lived together over there. And I got Johnny and went back and got McDaniel and got in the van and... yes, there was
You drove around downtown while the two of them conversed in the back seat?
Yes,
Those were the days when that's how you got deals done, right? Right?
There seems to be a bit, you read a lot about, and no one's going to be against this, right? It's like being against safe baby food, but, we must have more transparency. And I've had more than one conversation with a reporter. I'm like, well, the more transparency you have, the more partisan it's going to be. You want deals to get done, then that means the smoke-filled room has to return, or the smoke-filled van has to return. Like, the only way they can get a lot of these things done is in private. Is that a fair assessment, Lesa and Diane?
I do believe it's a fair assessment.
I do. I think so too. And I mean, there are a couple different kinds of transparency. One is the scrutiny that all the leaders have. That everybody's watching where you're going and what you're doing. And it seems like if you even take a step one way, there's 3 people with a camera and post it on social media before you even can take a breath. Then I think the other transparency is, and this from the perspective of the public is very good. When Diane and I, Jim, were over there, you weren't live streaming committee meetings. You weren't live streaming every breath that was taken over at the Statehouse. And so from the public's facing forward, looking in, they have that opportunity. They can be connected if they want to follow an issue, a bill, a rally, something that's going on. They have that opportunity each day in the Statehouse to do so when they're in session. But I really feel like what it then has done is that it's tough to get those deals made and cut. They used to get up at the microphone and they would go at each other on issues and things, and just you would think that there would be fisticuffs in the hall, and they'd stop. They'd either break for dinner or they'd adjourn for the day. They'd go out and they'd have a beer, sit there and talk, and come back in and go, we had a chat about this, and we think that we can find some common ground here, and so we're going to offer an amendment, or we're going to do something in the second house, and it would all get worked out, and people were slapping each other on the back, and there were friendships that were made, and that just doesn't happen as much now. I think in this process, but I do agree with Di that I think this year a concerted effort has been made with the freshman class coming in, and there have been a lot of them, to try and find either mentors or just get to know someone who is across the aisle, either in a different chamber or in a different caucus. And I think it has worked out really well. And you've seen more members of the minority party having bills heard and putting majority party members on their bills as second authors or second sponsors. I mean, I feel like that has been a bit of a breakthrough, and I hope it continues.
Well, and make no mistake about it. I mean, to the victor goes the gold. And when the Democrats were in control, the same thing happened.
That's correct.
I mean, you better have a D on there before you go to think about putting an R on there. That's just how, that's just how the life is,
sure.
Right? But the numbers make the change bigger. I mean, there's no balance. The numbers used to be closer. They had to get together. Quite frankly, there wasn't as much to do in downtown Indianapolis as there is now. Right. They were together more. They would socialize more. I mean, they really, truly did have a bond that they don't have now. And I will tell you, people can't see me right now, but I'm lifting up my phone. Right. And in as much as this has done great things for us to be able to, ask Siri, blah, blah, and you're going to get an answer, this has been such a divide, in my opinion, on people just spewing whatever on God's green earth they're thinking.
There's no filter.
And there isn't a filter. It's unfortunate.
Twitter? You're saying Twitter's a problem.
I'm saying all of it is a problem.
I'll just say that Lou Gehrig just called me. Do you want me to call him back and so he can be a part of this conversation?
I do love him.
There was an election. Was it 96? Was that the second split? What was the second 50-50? Was it later than that? We've had people.
The first one was 1988,
right?
Which is when I started lobbying.
And we've had people on the show, Jim, who have talked about how the first 50-50 split was kind of when things started to turn and get more partisan.
Well, that was a tough moment.
Oh, we were there for a long time. If you recall, we left on Thanksgiving morning.
Organization Day, where they select a speaker, started on Tuesday, and it ended sometime after midnight on Thursday morning. I remember, lawmakers had gone home. I still had to write stories and put TV stories together. I think I got home just a little before the sun came up on Thanksgiving morning.
Yeah. It was Noah's Ark, and it worked well, quite frankly.
You know what? It actually did.
It worked very well.
Well, and it depended on what side of the issue we were on, because all bills got heard. I mean, if the D's were hearing their bills, the R's were hearing their bills. You had co-chairs,
and they had a wild card that they could use.
And they did have a wild card, and you had proxies. I mean, it was good.
Well, part of what happened was prior to that. We experienced the speakership of J. Roberts Daly, who had, as it turns out, in the view of a lot of people, too much power. And when they went to the co-speaker arrangement with new rules, they took away a lot of the power of the speaker, and gave it to the members.
They did. That's right.
Yeah, it was. You're right. You're exactly right.
Back to Di's point about the phone and the impact of phones and social media, and I mean, I remember getting my first portable phone, so to speak, that was as big as a brick, right? And at the Statehouse, but that was a really big deal, that you had a portable phone, because you didn't have to go.
Do you remember Warren Spangle with his wife?
Oh dear God, yes.
He was the first.
He had like two of them, right? He was a
lobbyist for the restaurant association.
Yes, ahead of his time.
Yes.
But I mean, he would walk around. He'd have at least two phones, and sometimes, or two walkie-talkies, and sometimes he'd had them simultaneously held up, one to each ear. And I don't know if he was having the people talking to one another on each of these. It was terrible. But I will say the other thing, and this speaks to Jim.
Warren was a good lobbyist.
He was a very good.
He was always working the beer baron bill, and if you wanted a vote count before they put him on the board, Warren could give it to you.
But I will take up to Jim and the third estate, if you will. That I came in '88. What was it in '90? What year did in '95 was it that the Indianapolis News no longer existed, right? So you didn't have two daily papers in downtown Indianapolis, and then in 2000, Gannett buys the Star, and in the meantime, we were used to full-time media at the Statehouse with bureau offices, either upstairs on 4 or downstairs, up in the Hutchin or downstairs, and covering day-to-day activities. And the Star, at least, if not both the Star and the News, would have a picture every single day of legislators on the floor or in committee or doing something and would have a full page and usually a jump discussing issues. And I think that brought, even though clearly it wasn't live streaming, but that brought the process to people and who understood what was, who were interested, who understood what was going on at the Statehouse. And it's sad to see nowadays that a lot of the coverage is gone. A lot of that coverage is gone, right? And I know, Jim, right. You can certainly speak to that, but we just don't have as much full-time coverage as we have.
Have either of you had the pleasure of being interviewed by Jim live on television or for a package?
No.
Thank God.
This is our first.
Well,
right
first of all, in Diane's case, staff was forbidden from going on camera, with the exception of Wanda Reese.
Oh God, Wanda, yeah.
I told you we should have had wine. This could go on for quite some time if we would have had cocktails, but oh no.
She's the one staffer who I did interview who almost got fired for it. So.
You probably had an interview with Schreiber, I'm sure, back
well,
then.
Yeah, but Schreiber, of course, would
he was
go
on your show.
He would go on Indiana
That's
Week
right.
in Review. Yeah, he would serve as a party spokesperson, but he was chief of staff. So, you could talk to the folks on top of the totem pole, and you could talk to the media relations people. But even the media relations people seldom went on camera.
True.
And neither of you were ever on Indiana Week in Review? You weren't,
No.
Lisa?
Nope. No.
You chose John Hammond over. I love John Hammond, but you chose John Hammond.
He is a Republican National Committee.
That's right.
He gets all the respect in the world. He deserves it.
Pretty big
Lesa
on-
Dietrick.
No thanks. No thank you.
We did have a very small cast, I can tell you, because I thought that the audience should be familiar with who they were listening to and maybe be able to compare what they said this week to what they said last week.
Hey, as the person who did the 2 Riffer weeks in the Republican chair because McDaniel went to an NCAA tournament game, yeah, I remember that. I saw him afterward. I said, I ought to throw you down these stairs. And McDaniel just started laughing. He goes, I looked out again, didn't I? Ask a question real quick. Lisa, you mentioned that I want to ask Diane the same thing. You're listening to the Leaders and Legends podcast. Co-host Jim Shella, along with Diane Masariu and Lesa Dietrick. You mentioned someone you loved a few minutes ago who I love. He's more like my father, acts
Ed
like
Tracy.
him, talks like him, looks like him, from the East Coast, Ed Tracy, than anyone I've ever met in politics. Tell me about your relationship with him, both political in terms of working for him, and why you love him.
Oh yeah. So, for those who don't know Ed Tracy, and probably even for those who do, and he is such a great character, and he is someone who thoroughly enjoyed what he did, thoroughly enjoyed the lobbying process, and was fabulous at it. Taught me how to count votes and how to read people and how to really frame issues and put them into perspective. And truth be told, when I went to work for Ed, it was to be a 2-month assignment because I had just ended the '87 HUD-NUT campaign, and I was looking for what am I going to do next? What's my my next step? And I knew that it was time to stop doing full-time politics. It just was.
We all come to that.
You come to that conclusion, and you're like, I have too many yard signs for like 3 or 4 years worth of campaigns in my car. It's time to in the trunk. I got to clean these suckers
Bruce
out.
Melcher
and move
for
on.
Congress.
Yeah, and. Drew Young, who was at the time someone I'd known who was in politics, ran for Marion County prosecutor, also was a trial lawyer. And he said, hey, I got this guy. He's a Democrat. He's looking for a Republican to help lobby. He represents a couple of clients, one of which the Indiana Trial Lawyers Association. Are you interested in
the chiropractor
and the chiropractors? Yeah. And he's like, are you interested? And he's like, it's 2 months. The session, it was a short session, it was 88. He says, it's 2 months. I'm going, hell, I can do anything for 2 months, right? And then I'll figure out what I really want to do. And I'm really pretty embarrassed to say this, but I will, that on the first day of the session in 1988 was the first day I walked into the Indiana Statehouse ever, because I'm not from here, didn't get the fourth grade class trip, right? So I didn't know where anything was. And so that's what I did. I had to go find the bill room and all those good things.
You stayed 5 years with Ed.
And I stayed until 93 with Ed, and then came to Ice Miller, and this is my 30th year at Ice Miller.
Do you want to chime in on Ed Tracy?
Well, I got to tell you, ditto to what Lesa said. I mean, there is nobody like Ed Tracy. I mean, I've known him since I walked into the Statehouse. Yep. And Ed always did his homework, and he was always kind. Yep. He was always reasonable. Yep. I don't recall ever really seeing him ever losing his cool.
So you never worked for him?
Well, I didn't work for him. No, I did not.
I would see him
because I was on the inside, you know, so I was like the gatekeeper. But you know, Ed is he's one. You could learn so much from him. He never came into anything blind. He knew more about the situation or about the bill or anything. I mean, he always did his homework, and he was there till the last dog died.
He was.
I mean, you know, he would damn near close the doors of the Statehouse, and it was like, okay, I can go. Ed Tracy's left. You know, he has left the building. But he's that good.
He loved the process.
He did.
He knew how to read people, and again, he taught me how to count votes. And that there is a nuance to that, because you know, he's like, there are 5 ways to count votes.
Well, legislators don't mislead you, do they?
You know what? I will say, here's what I will say. I don't think legislators intentionally mislead you, but I think you have to understand how individual legislators make up their decisions and what they mean when they tell you where they are on a bill. And that is just human nature.
And sometimes there's 1 or 2 of them that vote with the last person they talk to.
We do have a few of those still left. There were a few of those.
Yes, we do. I have to say, though, that the old guards, and I'll put myself in that position. I mean, you know, Lesa and I both, I just said earlier, we're both on Route 66.
Yep.
Have, and Ed had, and has still to this day, and others that are there, the old guards, I refer to the old guards, have the respect of the institution. The institution is bigger than all of us.
Yes.
And there's so many people over there right now that they just don't get it.
Yep.
They got elected and it's all about them. It's not about them. Yep. They're going to come and they're going to go, and the institution's got to stand. Right. And we have to protect the institution. That's what needs to be protected.
Let me please reverse the question. Diane, who is the Republican who you love as Lesa loves Ed Tracy?
I love John Keeler. I adore John Keeler. Yeah.
He's a damn good man.
He is the greatest of the greats. Yes. Yeah, he absolutely is. There's a whole bunch of them, but he's at the top of my list. John Keeler, bar none.
How long have you known Keeler, Lesa? I think the first 50 times I saw you in my life, you were in a room with John Keeler.
Well, it would be because of politics, right? I mean, you can, in political, you know, on the political end, the large P political end, being involved in politics before I came to the Statehouse, I knew John Keeler.
Keeler was a state representative. He was chairman of the Marion County Republican Party.
Yep.
Marine Corps, as I recall. He worked at Baker and Daniels as an attorney.
Yep. And was with Keeler, Manweiler, and another Toby. They had, wasn't there a firm? They had
it was Murray Clark, Toby McClain.
Yeah, that was
McDaniel.
Love that Toby McClain too. I mean, my Rolodex, I'm just like, it's going through my head. There's too many. There's too many.
When you guys let me ask one more question, and then go ahead. When you guys got started, I mean, I've spent, you know, not nearly as many hours at the Statehouse as you three, but, you know, thousands. Were there that many female lobbyists? And how did you, because it's obviously grown, you know, there's considerable, really strong lobbyists.
There were, you know, strangely enough, there were always more female lobbyists in the last week.
Would you like to expand? Huh? You want to expand?
It just, and I'm not making this up, and I'm not trying to be crass. When it came down to crunch time, it seemed like there were a lot more young ladies in short skirts out in the hallway. Am I wrong?
I'm just not even going.
Not touching.
You can tell they currently go to the Statehouse.
There's more women though. Period. Right? There's more women in the House and in the Senate, and there are more women
elected officials generally.
in the hallway.
Although I think when I first started lobbying, we had more women in the chambers, maybe even in the House, because there were more women elected to office. And then for a while, then there was this like we hardly had any new women getting elected.
Well, that's true. Yeah, I agree with that.
But yeah, I would say it's now on the upswing.
You are listening
we've
to
had some great ones.
That's all right. You are listening to Leaders and Legends, a podcast presented by Veteran Strategies, an Indiana-based public relations enterprise, and sponsored by Garmong Construction, Leaders and Legends LLC, the Grand Hall and Conference Center at Historic Union Station, the McGinley's Golden Ace Inn, and NFP, a national insurance broker with strong local content. Our guests today are Diane Masariu, Lesa Dietrick, Hall of Famer Jim Shella. We're talking about the old guard, the new guard, the Statehouse, and anything else we can think of.
Well, Diane, you talked about being the gatekeeper. You had a desk right outside the House Speaker's door, and you were the person who everybody who wanted to talk to the Speaker came to. I'm guessing that you had an encounter or two that was memorable for somebody insisting that they needed to get into the Speaker's office.
Actually, I didn't have anybody that would come in, and there were times when maybe Mike or John didn't want to see somebody, but I would make them see somebody, even if it was for 5 minutes.
Mike.
Phillips. I worked for him as well when he was Speaker. And those days were the days that, you just wanted to wrangle them. We'll call a spade a spade. Look, we all have a job to do, and so part of the job is fundraising, right? It's a part that nobody likes. But at the end of the day, all you got to be able to do is go back to their client and say, I met with the Speaker. Like, that's a big deal. It's a big deal to be able to say that, right?
Right.
But I thought I did get to see, obviously everyone did have to come past me in order to get through, but one of my favorite things when I sat at that desk was having coffee every morning with Jim Smith. God rest his soul.
Who was Jim Smith?
Jim Smith was here.
He was a lobbyist for the law firm of Johnson Smith.
Well, but he started with Orr.
Yeah,
right.
He did.
Right, he was on Bob Orr's staff.
Mm-hmm.
He was the kindest soul, and he was at the Statehouse every morning. He would come in early because he knew I was there. He would get his coffee. He would just sit in the corner, get his little paper, read the paper, have coffee, maybe chat, and then give me a hug, and out the door he went and on his way.
What about news media trying to get into see Mr. Speaker?
There was never a problem with any of that. These guys were there all the time. We don't see it anymore like it was. Hell, Shella would, when session was over, he had a mic in somebody's, boom, and asking a question, and they were taking time, and Jim was, filming. It's not like it used to be. It was just like boom, boom, and you were so well respected and liked. That I know in my heart that you couldn't have gone to one member and asked a question and they wouldn't have given you an answer. And I think that goes for a lot. You're talking about media. Moose Roberts and those guys start coming back. When the Shacks were upstairs,
right?
Everybody sat around. Bob Ashley with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth and blah blah. Those days.
Well, in the press club, you had people went to the press club, right?
Sitting around shooting the shit. It was. Sorry. It was, it was different.
It was different. Well, and you mentioned the press club, and Lesa earlier talked about folks having an argument on the floor and then going to get a beer. Yep. When the press club was across the street, I think it contributed to a different atmosphere in the Statehouse.
Completely.
There was a lot of socializing, and party didn't matter.
Maybe we should do a podcast, Jim, on the press club.
That's not a bad idea.
It was so
Why
much
did it
fun.
die? What happened?
Well, I think there were a number of factors, including the fact that it never was very on good financial footing.
Yeah.
I think that really was it.
Yeah,
It started at the top of the ISTA building, which was awesome to be up there and be able to look over at the Statehouse, and you could see who was leaving. Like maybe if you were waiting on somebody, like a legislator, like, oh, they're walking to their car. Yeah. Boom, baby. Like, go do whatever, right?
Yep.
And then we got moved to the basement.
Yep.
Moved to the basement.
Yes.
But it was... it was kind of like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Yeah. At the press club, everybody
there was a rule. There was a rule. It was the press club, so the press was welcome. But the unwritten rule was that everything that happened there was off the record. And
didn't the sign say non-working members of the press? I think when you came in,
that could be. Yeah. I can tell you, I had some conversations in the press club that
you can't talk about.
No, that required follow up the next day, and I would call up the person I talked to and said, okay, we were off the record last night, but now I want to be on the record, and we'd start over again. I think members of the press who belonged and who went there observed that.
Yeah,
I agree.
Because I feel like legislators and lobbyists felt comfortable coming over there, right? It's like, oh, and it was right next door, right? So it was fabulous.
I only got food poisoning there once.
Which actually
Lesa, you started in Indiana Republican politics at a time where Indiana Republicans were running everything. Literally. Every county office, the mayor, probably all the statewide. Hell, a Democrat hasn't been elected state treasurer since the 70s. State auditor since my senior year in high school. Then Evan Bayh shows up. And brings eventually Bart Peterson to the mayor's office. How big of a shock was that to you, or was it a shock?
Don't forget Joe Hogsett, the Secretary of State, in a race against one Bill Hudnut. Yeah.
That was my next question.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. No, you're right.
Sorry.
No, you're right. I was just saying that, there was that enormous run.
Yeah.
Where in the late 60s through the 80s, early 90s, or, I guess until Bayh wins Secretary of State in 86, Republicans just controlled everything. And then all of a sudden it went away.
It did. I remember, and this is where being with Ed Tracy and working with Ed Tracy really helped, because his appreciation, and here's a guy he was like Mr. Democrat, right? And so walking in and working with him is really the first time I had ever really been exposed in working with someone of the other political party, right? Because I'd worked in partisan politics. And so you walk in and you're like, oh my gosh, is this going to work?
And the city county council was like 23 to 6.
It was 23 to 6. That was
whatever.
Exactly right. And so I'm walking in thinking, what is this going to be like? Are we going to have anything in common? And it turned out that we had so much in common because we had this great appreciation for the political process. And he was as rabid a D as I was an R, right, at the time. But we could sit there and talk about, and he had stories going way back, right? Because he was with the Young Democrats, and he would talk about national conventions and all those things that, and he was, when he was in Bloomington at IU, he was also, I want to say, party chair.
He was Monroe County
party chair. And so he was in there stirring the pot. He just, he was great at that. But he understood the importance of partisan politics as it related to policymaking, which was really, really an important thing for me to learn, because as much as you've got this young person who worked only in partisan Republican politics and no exposure really to the other side of the aisle, but it really gave me a great appreciation for you've got to have two parties, and you've got to have two parties in the process, because if you don't, then it really is often not really good for public policy.
In 1990, Joe Hogsett runs for his own term as Secretary of State. He beats Bill Hudnut. Who ran that campaign, and how much did that shock you, if at all?
Jewel DeBonis was the campaign manager.
Oh, there's a name on it.
Yeah, she's terrific. She's great.
Yeah, she's great.
And I think ran as good as a campaign as you could, right? But you had clearly you had a huge force, Bill Hudnut, who had been around a long time. Sometimes that's good, sometimes it's bad. You'd had a couple of factors. Having been in office for so long and having taken Indianapolis to the next level of greatness, raised taxes, and you just had, I think you had folks who said, and you had the mantra of Indianapolis. Indianapolis was not beloved by people.
What
right?
is?
Right. But looking at, you had folks out in the hinterland, and even though Bill Hudnut had been around and done Lincoln Days and spoken, you still had the mantra of somebody from Marion County. And it had been it's a tough go. And so it was all that and lots of other issues. And so I don't know, frankly, that it surprised me all that much. It hurt me, right? Because you want someone that you've worked for and who would do a good job. But
here's a fun little behind the scenes from that. Joe Hogshead beat Bill Hudnut in large part because he was able to portray him as the imperial mayor.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And
he was actually anything but nonetheless, right?
Well, that's what I'm getting at. I mean, one of the prime examples that Hogshead used was the fact that he traveled in a Lincoln Continental. The fact of the matter is, Ford Motor Company offered a deal to public officials, and they wanted public officials riding in Lincoln Continentals, and so they would give it to them at cost, or maybe even less.
I think it was, it was the point was you could have driven in a Pinto or a Lincoln, and it would have been the same amount of money being
exactly.
paid for.
But it's one of those charges that you can't defend,
right?
By
right,
saying that I want to ride in a Lincoln.
Diane, did you ever have a chance, or I'm sure you did, but how close did you come to working for a governor or moving out of the Statehouse?
I wasn't going to move from the House.
From the House representative?
I was a house girl. I definitely was a house girl through and through.
You got involved in some campaigns, though, didn't you?
Oh, I mean, very involved in all the campaign. I mean, all the years that I was there. I mean, the old door to door. I mean, going to the ground. That was an Ed Tracy. I mean, It was really. I mean, Bill Schreiber. I mean, those guys, that was how we won the war. George Fleetwood, there's another one, that worked with Schreiber, and they started doing polling back then, with Jim Riggs.
Jim Riggs, who I went to high school.
I love Jim Riggs. But, the politics of it and the door-to-door and all that, but never to go...
I love Jim Riggs, too. He fed me when I was in high school more than once. His daughter and I graduated together. He's a brilliant, brilliant man, and was at the 68 convention with Ed Tracy in Chicago, the Democrat one. Were you surprised by the buy phenomenon? Like, oh, my God, we've actually got a chance to turn things around. And the 90s were kind of the state heyday for Democrats.
Yes. There was a lot of up and down, in all that. And the numbers were much closer. But when you look back at that wave, I mean, it was a long run. It was a long run.
Did it surprise you that it ended, or did it surprise you that it lasted as long as it did?
C.
Okay, what is C? You want Shella answer C?
These people don't have a career in politics by not knowing when to answer it, when not to.
Yeah, I choose C.
Lesa, did Mitch Daniels rescue the Indiana Republican Party? Jim Kittle, that group, and of course the beloved and late Bill Osterly. Yeah,
I mean, I certainly have to tip my hat to Mitch Daniels and him coming in. Well, first, I mean, he was a Luger. Let's remember, Mitch Daniels just didn't start when he ran for governor. He was really an architect of the Luger program and what that did for the city. But I feel like he came in and brought a different brand to the party that made it exciting and was brought back, I think, because of going out to each county and visiting and just kind of listening to people. I think brought back that brand of boots on the ground politics, really, if you will. He
absolutely did. Absolutely did.
And in a way where he listened to people, and at a time when they were sitting in their homes at their tables, and they were talking about things that just meant that were important to them. And that politicians need to take a page out of that and listen to what matters to people. Not all these many lofty things, but sometimes it's what matters to you at 5 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the evening when you come home and you're thinking about your family and you're thinking about your future and your kids and all that. And I feel like he took that and in a way that very few people can and turned it into, here's how we make Indiana just a fabulous place in which to live and work and raise a family. And that was just, I think it was
old school.
Daniels is old school and a brilliant turn at the time. And it was, however, it was, overlaid with kind of a bit of modern day, right? I mean, you had the opportunity to, he threw things up on the air, and they produced, little vignettes that you were able to watch on your phone that were really cool, and they grabbed at you. 15, 20 years prior to that, you couldn't. That's when the old school boots on the ground making phone calls was the only way to go. But he really turned it into modern day, but really used those basics.
I worked for a guy named Murray Clark, whom all of you know very, very well, former podcast guest a few times. He was working at Faegre or Baker and Daniels, whatever it is at the time, and he was chairman of the Indiana Republican Party, my boss, and had to say what he had to say in that role. Sometimes I wrote it for him, and sometimes he would say, Robert, I can't say that. What was it weird? I mean, you've known Murray for a long time, Diane. Was that just when he was coming over? Because what I hear a lot, and we've heard in these podcasts, and we talk about it when we talk about Indiana Week in Review, is that sometimes you just have to play the role. That this is my role for this half hour or for this particular job. Do you get the sense that the political folks understand it? Like, hey, don't give so-and-so a hard time. He's doing what he's got to do. Because Ed Tracy, I know, understands that.
Mm-hmm.
Murray is, look, I mean, Murray's done so much. I mean, he's been around, he's right there with us age-wise. And he's a smart guy and has, to your point, said, okay, I have to say this. You really want me to say that? Okay, I will do it, Now, trust me, that child will push back and, calls his own shots. But, I'm sure that he's had many a time sitting around a table with Mitch Daniels and others where it was just like, this is the way it's going to be done. This is what's going to be said. And that's how it's going to roll. I mean, we've all had to do that, right? I mean, in some point.
And do you
in
get
our
the
life.
sense that the people on the other side, the Lesa Dietricks of the world, or for Lesa, the Dianes of the world, are like, I get it. Yeah. I'm not mad at you. You had to do what you had to do. This is part of the world. This is the, I hate to use the Hyman Roth phrase, but this is the profession we've chosen.
Right.
And what I hear a lot is it's within the parties. We talked to Robin Winston and Mike McDaniel for the podcast, and they were talking about how fellow Ds or fellow Rs would really give them a hard time. But the other party would be like, yeah, man, you got to say that. Yeah, you got to do that.
The ones that give him a hard time don't understand the politics of it. And, I've always said, you can teach somebody policy. You can't teach somebody politics. And all those that sit around.
And there are a lot who are unwilling to learn. I was just talking to Jim before everybody got here. And Schreiber and Lubbers were his first two guests on the show 30 years ago, whatever it was. And Mark Lubbers' mom used to say, he got you this week. Schreiber always prided himself on being able to just put one over the net that he just couldn't cut back, right? And it was, and they had fun and they loved each other. I mean, they were good friends, as the ones that are doing the show now. I mean, they really do have a lot of respect for each other. But back to your point, I know I've gone full circle on this, is that at some point, you got to protect the guy you're protecting, whether it's on the second floor, the third floor, the House or the Senate. When they're asking a question like, well, now the budget, you're going to go and you're going to give X amount of money, blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? They got to toe the line. And the ones that give them crap, they just don't get it.
And I've always thought, and I'll cede some time to Jim here after this question or assertion, politics would be better if more people were involved. Most of the folks that I know who get all fired up about politics, they've never worked a poll. They've never done a
dear
walk
God,
list.
no, they've never done that.
They've never done anything.
Right,
They just,
right.
and I'm not going to blame it on social media per se, because, political
Cable TVs. Too.
Political
you're
tempers have been around a long time, right?
Yes.
Right.
So if more people would be involved and they would have more interactions with the other side, you would be like, oh, so you were a veteran? Or, oh, you grew up in my neighborhood? Or that sort of thing. And it doesn't happen enough. I wish there were more people involved in politics, not fewer.
No, I agree. And quite frankly, it's, in our job that Lesa and I do, and I know that the two of us both have great relationships on both sides of the aisle and in both chambers. And I could go through the list, and I know Lesa could do the same thing. I could tell you damn near every one of those legislators sitting in both chambers, how many children they have, how many dogs they've got, that's our job. I mean, I think it's really part of our job to know them. We don't have to agree. We can agree to disagree, and we're going to be there for a client. We're going to be speaking on behalf of a client. But it's great to have that relationship and what they do.
At the end of the day, they're just people too, right? They put themselves up to do something I have never done, which is run for office, right? So hats off to anyone for making that for making that decision. But then they come down here and they have a constituency to represent. And so first, as someone who's in the hallway, you have to understand that. You have to say, regardless of what you have, what issue you have, if that won't fly in this legislator's district, then it's just not going to fly. And you just want them to understand, well, if your constituents don't like this, just here's the impact then where that intersection of policy meets kind of the political, the road. Mm-hmm. And so that's just kind of where it goes.
Well, and at the end of the day, there's very few issues. I mean, there's a handful where they want you to toe the party line.
That's right.
Plain and simple. Yeah. And that's harder to do right now because of all the cats they've got to herd over there with sitting with two supermajorities.
Yeah, it is hard.
Well, explain this to me, because you both work for big law firms that have lobbying teams mm-hmm. that are made up of Republicans and Democrats, mm-hmm. And even small lobbying firms tend to have a Republican lobbyist and a Democrat lobbyist. Why is that? Is that it's not for the sake of the clients? Is it? It's because when push comes to shove, they want a Republican lobbyist pressing on Republican members and vice versa. Correct?
I'd say there's some of that, just the natural relationships you have if you're involved in partisan politics as sort of your hobby, which is what got me to this point. So I certainly, and I appreciate the political process and believe that if you don't appreciate it and you don't really understand, the hardcore part of working in politics just on a volunteer basis or having done it full time for a couple of years, then it's really tough to understand the legislators over there, because that's how they got to the Statehouse. They ran for office. And so your ability to appreciate what they had to do to get elected and then to stay elected, I think, is important. But yeah, I mean, it's probably could be said that yes, in times, particularly in where there are partisan matters, it's very difficult for someone who's on the other side of the aisle probably to go have a really in-depth conversation, especially if it's someone who remains active in party politics, right? And so you're not going to. I sat on state committee for a while. It's tough for me to go in and talk to somebody about, well, on the other side of the aisle, well, this is really important when I'm sitting over here in a partisan sense. So I think that's it. But I value those nonpartisan relationships, or in both caucuses and in both chambers, just because 9 times out of 10, you're going to come up against something that is not a partisan issue.
Diane, how much do you think local politics, as we're discussing it here, is influenced by what is happening nationally? I must act this way or say these things or do these things because that's what the national R's or D's are doing, or that's what the national media is covering.
When you say local, you mean that limestone building over here?
That limestone building.
I think that there's a little bit of it. I wouldn't say there's a lot of bit of it, but I do believe there is a little bit of it. But there are pockets of those little bits of people over there. There are pockets. There are different pockets of people over there that, that kind of fit into that little groove, right? And so I think that there is some. I don't think there's a lot. I think there is some.
Do you run into Republican legislators who are unwilling to talk to you because you're a Democrat?
Never. I don't think they ever. I mean, I don't think that is. Well, first of all, it's never happened. And when you were asking that question, I think that part of it is longevity. I think that back in the day, it was like Noah's Ark. You had a Republican, you had a Democrat, in the lobby. The fact of the matter is that when it comes to politics, okay, I get it. I get it. Those of us in the business get it. Everybody gets it. But when we're going in to visit with for a client, it is, with Brian Bosma, with Paul Manweiler, with Mike Phillips, with Rod Bray. Now, they all go, name them all, right? They go back, whether it was Ed Tracy going in, they had a lot of respect for Ed Tracy. Ed Tracy had a lot of respect for them. And again, I'm going to go back to the institution. Diane Masariu, when I go in with the mod squad, as I refer to us, Joe Smith, Chip Garver, and myself, Michael Cole. Let me just take some of you people that are listening to this, the mod squad back in the day. Clarence Williams.
Google it.
Right, yeah, Google the mod squad. Diane Masariu, Chip Garver, and Joe Smith. At any rate, when we go in to visit with them, we have the utmost respect for those that are in leadership in both chambers, in both parties. And I know in my heart that they have respect for us and that we're there. We're going to be honest. That's all you got to go on is your word, right? And I will tell you that it's, no, I've never had anyone not.
Jim, do you have a final question before we get to the 5 questions?
I have over the years encountered people who, when they ask me what I do and I say I'm a political reporter, they go, "Ooh, how do you stand to work in politics?" And what I tell them is that there's politics everywhere. There's politics at church, at work, at home. Politics is the only place where they call it what it is, so you can suspect everybody's motive. But do you find people who recoil when they find out what you do?
Oh yeah, it's what's
Thank God for Andy Dietrick.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Here, go talk to me. Yeah, go talk to my husband. But yeah, people look. Oh, you're a lobbyist. Yeah, okay, well, right. So.
But lobbying is a specific sort of.
Yeah.
Well, the steak dinners and drinks and.
It is.
But they don't have pharmaceutical people that go to the doctor's office to have a new drug and want to give the girls candy when they go in so they can see the doctor to help out or a dentist or something. It's just like
there's lobbying everywhere too.
There is. It's politics.
There really is lobbying.
I said right now, if I drop dead in this room today before we leave, I am the luckiest girl in the world. I have had the best friendships, the best time of my life over there since 1975. I wouldn't trade it for $1 million. I have friends in 92 counties, and thank you for allowing us to do this because I had a great time in this small brain of mine going through my Rolodex, and I wish I could name all of them. It was so much fun, and I have so much respect for the institution. So thank you.
The friendships you
they're just
especially if you're not willing. If you say, I'm not going to go into it demonizing, because we all kind of maybe start in politics a bit, more radical, for lack of a better term. I'm going to show them sort of thing. And then you get a little more mellow, I would guess,
I think so.
during your growing up years in politics. But if you're open-minded about friendships and people and you understand what their job is and that, hey, they've got to do this sort of thing, it's basically unlimited, the great friendships you can have.
I feel like as you see new legislators get elected and come to the Statehouse, and you sit down and have a conversation with them, and you figure out, okay, what brought them to the prom, right? If they say, well, I'm here to really change things and make a difference, and which are two really different things. And as to Diane's point, you're not going to change the process. And so if you learn that and you get mentored by other legislators over there who work you through how to get yourself the arms around the process and work with it, you'll have a great time. And if not, my feeling is that you aren't long for the world because you won't enjoy it.
I know the answer. Well, the answer is probably yes to both because you lobby each side. But 2 of my best friends in politics are in the General Assembly. Friends of mine, my contemporaries, Senator Kyle Walker and Representative Rob Green. What's it like to see them. And Diane, I'm sure you have some examples too of people who you knew 20 some years ago who ended up being in the Statehouse, elected official. Do you get a little bit of pride when you say, man, we worked those long hours together and I knew you when you were just, collecting yard signs at 20 years old and now?
Yeah, because you're happy. They've made that decision, right? They've taken that extra step across the line to say, I understood the political process and the public policy process, and now I'd like to see if I can go in a more public way and do it. So very proud of both of them, and frankly, I was around when folks who were members of the city council are now legislators. You've got
Aaron
Freeman, Mike Speedy, Mike Young, and I mean it just
Cherish Pryor?
Folks, Cherish, that's right. And
Blake Johnson,
you had a
right.
lot of people who have come up through that process and then stepping away from Marion County. And I know Rob is not in Marion County, but you realize, well, folks from who are out in the hinterlands from other districts also came up through they worked behind the scenes and then they might have been on a town board or something and then they came in. So it's terrific.
For me, it was a little bit different. Because I started so young and I was there on the inside. And, so my friendships, I've lost a lot. I've had many that were friends, dear friends that were there that are gone. But, Kyle Walker, look, I love him. He's been a dear friend. His wife's a dear friend. And he's done a great job. And he's one of those that the institution is important to him. It's not about Kyle Walker. It's about the institution, and he's there for the right reason. And I did introduce myself. That's something I pride myself in, is that I go and I meet all the new legislators and introduce myself, and I'll say to them before I leave, go and make an appointment to see the governor, make an appointment to see the lieutenant governor, make an appointment to see the leader of the chamber and whoever they are, and ask for that meeting and go and introduce yourself to Rod Bray. Go and introduce yourself to Todd Houston. You are a sitting member now, and you need to reach across the aisle, find a friend. I mean, we need to get back to playing nice in the sandbox and having friends.
That's what Louis Mahern said when he came on with John Mutz, that the Democrats said, go find a Republican you can work with because they were controlling, but go find someone. And, they've been friends for 50 years.
Yeah.
At least. And you're right. Jennifer Hollowell, smartest person I ever met in politics.
Yeah,
Absolute.
She is a good egg.
Genius.
Yeah, she is.
We've reached the point in the Leaders and Legends podcast where we ask the same 5 questions of all of our guests. Lesa, do you want to you've already had this once. You want to do it again? Because you change your answers.
I don't recall what they were. So
I don't think Dave Arlen or Joe Slash are going to call you and say, hey, you lied to us the first go around.
Have at it.
You ready?
Yeah, all right, go.
We have to, go. So give us the
first question. Lesa, what was your first job?
Paid job?
Yes.
Like paid
beyond babysitting, let's say.
I worked in food service at Purdue. I was in the cafeteria.
If babysitting doesn't count, Westlake Drive-In was my mom's best friend. She owned the Westlake Drive-In over on Beachway Drive, 935 Beachway Drive, Indiana's finest outdoor show place.
Terry Court's the last resort. That's where I worked.
What was your first concert?
Oh, I'm really embarrassed to say this because nowadays kids go to concerts before they hit double digits in their age. But for me, because I was this little girl from Pennsylvania, I didn't go to a concert till I came to Purdue, and it was Chicago and the Doobie Brothers in Market Square Arena.
Oh, damn good concert.
Damn good concert. Jim, would you like to weigh in?
I saw Chicago at the Metropolitan Sports Center in the Twin Cities in 1973, I think. It was a tremendous concert.
Yeah. Jackson 5.
At the drive-in?
So jealous.
No.
I am so jealous.
Jackson 5.
Here.
First time they came to Indianapolis.
Market Square Arena?
Yes, sir.
Our buddy Mark Apple was at that concert. I don't know if you know Mark, who works at Butler now. Number 3, if you could suggest any book for someone to read, which book would you recommend?
Oh, dear God.
Oh, jeez. I don't know.
Wow.
You don't have to go in order. Diane, if you know yours.
I don't. God, we were just talking about books the other day, too.
Keep thinking we can edit the pause.
I
got nothing. I haven't.
I'm thinking
for a long time. You're just got to go to the next question for me because
Didn't
I've got
John Gregg
nothing
write a
right
book?
now. Oh, yeah, but that's not going to be my,
From
like, my
Sanborn
book
to the
say.
Statehouse.
I mean, hell, there's a whole bunch of them over there written books.
Yeah, that's true. I think one that I appreciate is the Places You'll Go. Dr. Seuss.
By Dr. Seuss, all the places. Because you are a traveler extraordinaire.
Yeah, and so
How many countries have you been to? Do you have the count?
20-some, 25. So, but I mean, it's just it's not heavy lifting, heavy reading, but I think it's for people. Sometimes in politics, and nowadays you get so dug into one path that that book is important. For me, is just it's a good thing to read to open your eyes.
Make your bed.
Bye.
I knew you were going to ask me that.
This is what it's like. This is what it's like being interviewed by Shella.
She's consulting the Google machine.
Next question. If you could witness any event in history, be there in person as it happens, which event would you choose, Lesa? While Diane is Googling.
Yeah.
I think I grew up in Pennsylvania. Not very far from Gettysburg, and it would be witnessing Abraham Lincoln give the Gettysburg Address.
It's a very popular, very terrific answer. November 19th, 1863. Diane? First, you want to say the author?
Chris.
William McRaven.
William McRaven. Make your bed.
I don't know, Lesa, that's a pretty darn good one that you just gave. I think I would have loved to have been with Bill Schreiber and Louis Mahern with Bob Kennedy here.
And Mike Riley. We did a podcast.
Oh, dear God, Mike Riley.
Yeah, we did a
Mike
podcast
Riley.
with Mike Riley. Ed Tracy said said he was dying, said he's got cancer, he's dying. You have to talk to this guy. And Tracy's a huge history buff, as I am. And I was like, okay, tell me why. And he said he ran RFK's campaign in Indiana in 68. And I'm like, sold. And it was a terrific podcast. What a, rest in peace, Mike. What a
I'm gonna go
terrific,
back and listen to that.
terrific conversation.
Wow, there's another great one.
Last question. If you could have dinner with anyone living today, 2 hours off the record just to chat, whom would you choose?
Living today.
I'm available.
You and Pat?
Isn't that?
Most popular answer is Barack Obama. Second most popular answer is probably Paul McCartney. I mean, you can gaze throughout the world. Who do you want?
Okay, living today. With that in mind, because I am just such a fan, and I saw him when he finally made it here, I think I'd really enjoy having dinner with Elton John.
Elton John? Mm-hmm.
Because
Brilliant,
he's
genius.
Yeah.
And has
just
stories, I'm sure,
and how
like
he grew
crazy.
up. Yeah. How he just, how he
And how wonderful he was about Ryan White.
Yes. I mean, he has a very multifaceted.
Wow, there's so many. I mean, there really are. That's hard. I had my answer all picked out until you said living.
Tim Jeffers doesn't do anything tonight.
There's a great one. I know. You got me stumped. There's
Just choose one. There's
I
no right
know.
answer.
I know. I'm trying. I'm trying to think of somebody that's not like media related, politically.
Because that really takes.
I know. Yeah, it really does take out Shella then.
Darn it.
Well, I say this all the time. My husband would tell you I say this all the time. I would love to have a beer with Kevin Costner.
Perfectly acceptable answer. Are you inviting your husband to that beer? No?
Let the record show she shook her head no.
Last question. Diane, tell me about Lesa Dietrick.
Well, I just said earlier, she's our little Mary Tyler Moore. She's one of those people that when she walks in the door, she greets you with a smile. Her heart is always happy. She is kind, and she's smart. She loves to cook, and she loves her family.
Lesa, tell me about Diane Masariu.
Well, she is someone whom I have admired for a long time, in particular in her role at the Statehouse. And I can remember her standing up, because, she's 9 feet tall, right? And so heads, for many, many reasons, heads and shoulders above lots of people, lots of the men over at the Statehouse. Always someone who she comes with, and this is, as I tell interns, a no job, too small mentality, which in our business is an important thing to have, and not enough people have it. But she knows everything. She is interested in and knows so much about each person that she sincerely wants to know about your family and your life. And when she talks about her Rolodex, she has, I'm sure, probably a physical one, but she has a mental one that she remembers those things. But I have worked with her on many client efforts. She is dedicated, she is smart, and she thinks about what is important to each person, the person she has to go and talk to, and she has to spell out this issue. But there's never well, no, I'm not going to do that. There's always, what is the best way to do this? And for that, I admire her so much, because she is a true team player. And you have to be a team player at the Statehouse, because in some cases, when you are opposing each other for some reason, you may need to be best friends the next day. Diane has the utmost credibility, she has integrity, she is honest, and she is a beautiful person inside and out. And I have enjoyed working with her.
Would you each like to say a word about Jim Shella?
Now stop it.
I will say this. I miss Jim Shella.
I do too.
At the Statehouse. I miss his presence. I miss Jim
I miss
behind Hessler.
Mm-hmm.
I still walk past your shack and the door's open, and I still think I'm going to see him in there.
That's right. It just, you know what? You miss it. And it may, that's also, I think, hearkening back to a time when you just felt more comfortable about the media and the day-to-day.
You had such a presence there. You had such a presence.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I always felt like you knew you had a job to do, but you really enjoyed it, right? You and Hessler, you really enjoyed it, and you didn't you didn't let the hard work get in the way of the enjoyment, that can happen over there.
And you did the work.
Yeah, you did the work. Yeah.
You have been listening to Leaders and Legends, a podcast presented by Veteran Strategies, an Indiana-based public relations enterprise, and sponsored by Garmong Construction, Leaders and Legends LLC, the Grand Hall and Conference Center at Historic Union Station, the McGinley's Golden Ace Inn, and NFP, a national insurance broker with strong local content. Lesa, will you hold my hand for this part?
I will.
As always, all our podcast interviews are dedicated to the legacy and generosity of P.E. McAllister.
God bless P.E.
God bless.
Our guests have been Lesa Dietrick, Diane Masariu, longtime friends, incredibly respected. I cannot tell you how kind you've been to me in my career, and it's long overdue that we had you on the podcast. Thank you, Jim. As always, you make the podcast so much better.
You're welcome.
Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah, this was great fun.
Yeah, thank you for the honor.
And it's my
thank
last,
you.
because I'm retiring.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you very much for listening to Leaders and Legends, brought to you by Veteran Strategies Incorporated. If you want to contact us about this program or our menu of public relations services, please send us an email at robert@veteranstrategies.com. That's Robert at veteranstrategies.com.